Good morning, members and brokers. Thank you for taking the time to join our Roadmap Progress webinar this morning. On behalf of all of my colleagues, we do appreciate you putting the time aside for our broadcast. The purpose of this event is for my team to share with you our progress for each project and to provide you with an opportunity to raise any specific issues or answer any questions that you may have. I'd like to say at the outset that we are pleased with the progress today, but I'll leave it to each of the responsible project managers to provide the details. With me from Unimutual today are all of those members of the team that I introduced to you at our previous webinar and are shown on this slide. In addition, we have from the finance team, the newly appointed CFO, Victor Walter. From risk services, we have risk engineer Greg Burton. From the underwriting team, David Boreham and Celindus Att. Kerry French from member services, and Belle Trulove from exec support. Between those on the slide and those I've mentioned, I think we're pretty well placed to answer any questions that you may have. If you do have any questions or you require clarity on any matter, please either pop them into the question box or ask them in the Q&A session at the end. I don't think I need to take up any of your time with the introduction, so what I might do now is get down to the business of the day. And first up, I would like to introduce you or reintroduce you to Tobias Fau, who's our manager underwriting and reinsurance. And Tobias has quite a few of the key projects to explain to you. Tobias, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Terry, and good morning, everyone. So just now giving an update on the projects under my responsibility, and the first one is the project reinsurance renewal. The background and driver for this project was the experience of last year's renewal and the feedback from all stakeholders, including reinsurers, brokers, reinsurance brokers, and yourselves, our members. The traditional clash of dates of our reinsurance and member renewal provides very little time to everyone involved to receive, analyze, and process reinsurance terms, offer membership to our members, and for our members and brokers to evaluate terms provided and make an informed decision. This year, our reinsurance protection will incept on October 1st, so 1 month earlier than previously. And members will receive terms early October, providing significantly more time for the renewal decision-making process. The reinsurers provided positive feedback on those changes in the renewal date. We are now at the back end of presenting the renewal to our reinsurance carriers, which have started to underwrite the underwriting process at their end. The changes at the mutual, as well as the work done on the risk management side at the member level, were very positively received and commented on during these presentations. Besides the risk management side and follow-up on recommendations, the reinsurers focused on weather-related perils like bushfire, severe convective storm, and hail, which have driven Australian insurance and reinsurance results in the last couple of years. During our meetings with our reinsurance partners, the importance of accurate and complete data was again highlighted. So just as a reminder, negotiations cannot be completed without full member data. If not provided yet, please provide any outstanding data as soon as possible. Moving on to the second project under my control, the project payment certainty. The project payment certainty is closely linked to the previous project reinsurance renewal. The aim of this project is really to implement a process that is acceptable to all carriers and allow for an early indication of terms. In order to achieve that, we've asked our reinsurance partners this year to provide terms on a more granular basis and allow for adjustments post-renewal for any substantial increase or decrease in values. Similar to the shift in renewal date, our reinsurance partners are on board with the concept, but need to work through it as part of their underwriting and pricing process, which is currently in place. And as soon as we get any feedback, obviously we'll share that. Ultimately, the goal is here to minimize any impact of unexpected events. This could be either a large claim or a significant change in the risk profile of the mutual. But ultimately, we want to make sure that every member gets the best terms and benefit from being part of the mutual. This leads me to the third project, the protection review. So now coming from moving forward from the pricing and term side to the coverage. The protection review project has really two aspects to it. Firstly, we decided to have a ground-up review of our core protection wordings and compare them to available market wordings. This should assure that we offer a competitive product in the market. And from our side, David Borum and Salinder Sadhu on this call have done that analysis on the property and liability side. And we are comfortable that the product we offer is competitive in the current market environment. Secondly, we will update the wording, bringing it in line with the current industry standard. This refers more to the overall structure, clarity, and certainty of our protection wording. And as part of this process, we engaged an external firm that specializes in drafting wordings. However, we decided to keep any changes for this renewal to a minimum, responding to member feedback and feedback from our reinsurance partners. An overall update of the property protection wording will follow next year.
Thanks, Tobias. I hope that helps you, and I hope we're getting plenty of questions into the box.
There's one more. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm always leaping in before I should. I'll leave it to you, Tobias.
No, that's fine, Terry. Thank you. So the last project under my control as part of the bigger roadmap is the retention modeling. And the retention modeling is really a direct response to our member inquiries asking for input into the analysis of different deductible options. This project is part of a bigger project on improving our pricing, analytics, and metrics. We partnered with an actuarial consultant and also achieved input from an external CAT modeling provider. The goal is to provide our members better guidance on the value of cost and cost of higher and lower deductible options. Crucial here, again, is the information we get from our members and working with our partners, getting a better understanding on the spectrum of losses impacting the different deductible levels. This is unlikely to be completed and rolled out before the renewal this year.
Is it safe for me to go now?
Yes, all safe. Thanks, Terry.
Thanks a lot. Thanks. Sorry about that. Next cab off the rank really needs no introduction at all. Christine Cummings, Manager, Member Services. Christine, over to you.
Thanks, Terry. The purpose of this project is to ensure that there is good communication between the members and Unimutual. This is achieved by the flow of information from the member forum to the technical committee and then to Unimutual and the board. We encourage all members to participate in the member forum as it provides members with the opportunity to provide their thoughts and ideas and ensure that Unimutual is providing products and services which meet the needs of the members. The technical committee are giving their time and doing an excellent job on behalf of all members in raising the issues that arise from the member forum and are helping to steer the mutual in the right direction. Your representatives on the technical committee include
Greg Sharon, University of South Australia.
Michelle Griffith, Curtin University, Hopkins, Charles Sturt University, Kaja Lombardo, Southern Cross University, John DeFonte, University of Wollongong, Anita Taylor, University of New England, Lucy Kenny, University of Queensland. Noel Condon, a Unimutual Board Director, chairs the meetings and provides reports back to the board. A new risk management module has been developed in Reshaw for the management of risk recommendations. This will replace the Excel spreadsheets and email communications. The rollout of the system is being managed by Greg Burton. It has gone through an initial pilot phase and received good feedback and will be rolled out to the remaining membership over the next few months. This year we have put up a number of webinars and discussion groups for members to participate in, including the roadmap updates and webinars on cyber and controlled environments. If you've missed a webinar, you can always access a recording from the Unimutual website. You will need to use your login details to access the member-only content. And if you need assistance with access, please contact Kerry French. There is a webinar coming up later in August, on the 16th of August, on contract management, and invitations have have been sent out for this webinar, and if you need an invitation, please contact Kerry French. The next project is on information strategy. This year, we have kept members updated on all our activities throughout the year with the roadmap updates, and we've received positive feedback on the level and style of communications. The induction day, which was scheduled for July, but due to COVID had to be cancelled. We are very keen on holding face-to-face inductions, but we'll need to wait until lockdown and border closures have ended before we schedule any future induction days. In the meantime, we are working on online induction resources, which will be made available on the website. Most of you probably have already gathered that the conference should be postponed this year due to the situation currently in New South Wales. We have decided to postpone the conference to March 2022, and the new dates for the conference are the 16th, 17th and 18th of March. So put these in your diary. The venue is the same. It will be at the Sofitel Darling Harbour, and the agenda and speakers will remain the same as well, with the exception, of course, of Hamilton, which is due to leave Sydney at the end of the year. So we'll be finding another exciting activity to replace it. Also, in line with our conference theme, disruption and creative opportunities, we are taking the opportunity with which this specific disruption has provided to move the conference permanently to March each year going forward from 2022. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christine. Thank you. It's a bit unfortunate we've had to postpone the conference, but we think, I'm sure that we'll find something equally as exciting to entertain you next year. Next, I'd like to introduce you to one of the new members of the team, who's the Manager, Broking Services and Strategy, and that's Peter Klempt.
Thanks, Terry, and thanks, Christine. I've been in my role now for just on 3 months, and it has been great rekindling lots of relationships and forming new ones. The feedback we continue to receive is that both brokers and members are comfortable with our timely, open and transparent communication, as Christine has already mentioned. Of course, this will continue, and if anything, will increase as we move forward through the renewal process. We have heard loud and clear that delivering renewal terms in early October is absolutely critical. Rest assured, this remains our collective top priority. Moving on to the next slide, please. We have onto the member plan initiative now. A big thank you to the 17 members and their brokers involved so far. Member plans will help us ensure the full depth and breadth of our services are fully leveraged by each member. This will help improve members' respective risk profile. This activity is always looked upon favourably by our insurer and reinsurer partners, helping us secure the best terms and conditions. Ultimately, it would also help stabilise member contributions over time. And as I've mentioned, some 17 members have been involved so far, and we've begun reaching out to a further 10. Our target is to have 20 member plans complete by towards the end of September, when we're going to pause the member plan process to focus entirely on the renewals. Well, that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Next, I'd like to introduce or reintroduce Jamie Thompson to you, who's been looking after an interesting project that we thought might help. Jamie.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. My project involved offering to assist members with their below retention losses in an environment where a number of members had seen increases to their retentions. So we drew up a plan for this project and a methodology. We started by contemplating a trial period during which a small number of members would be selected and would participate in the trial. And during the trial, we had in mind that we would offer to assist those members with their below retention losses in a number of possible ways. We spoke to 11 university members and their brokers, and unfortunately, the level of interest was lower than we'd expected, and only 2 members really signed up for the trial. And neither of those members have had any losses that would fall for consideration as part of the project. The trial period ends 31st of August, which is now only a few weeks away. And the 2 members who have signed up for the project haven't had any losses, as I said. So despite this somewhat disappointing level of uptake, all the engagements that we've had with the members that we've spoken to and with their brokers have been positive. They've all appreciated the initiative and appreciated being considered for inclusion in the trial. I should just mention a couple of the reasons why some members have decided not to participate in the trial. Some members have passed on the full retention that they have to the university departments, and so they haven't got a centralised burden that they need help with, whereas others do have a centralised function but feel that they can manage that themselves, and I'm sure that that's the case. So once we reach the end of the trial period, we'll consider where to from here, and I expect that we will decide that this is not something we wish to roll out to the whole membership, but that we'll continue to provide advice and support to members on an ad hoc basis, as we have done for many years. But we do encourage members to track and manage their below retention losses, which is useful for both managing and ascertaining their total cost of risk. And also it's very useful when it comes time at renewal to consider, if the member is considering taking a lower retention, it's very useful to be able to look at the losses that they've had below their existing retention. And that goes back to one of Tobias's initiatives. And finally, the Resure system is available for all members to use to help them with managing their claims, and it's very useful tool for that purpose. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jamie. Very good points you raised there about recording the data so that it enables us to do a really good job on providing recommendations on deductible levels, etc. Finally, in terms of the presentation, the gentleman that I'm going to introduce you to next doesn't have a specific project, but in fact, the work that he and his colleague do is fundamental to virtually all of the projects that are running. So I'd like to introduce you to Simon Iliff. Simon.
Thanks, Terry. Our recent engagement with the market during renewal presentations highlighted several focus areas for our insurance and reinsurance partners. The first one was that risk recommendations are still high on insurers' risk quality agenda, and we'd like to note the efforts that members have gone to provide us with updates, and that has been very well received. There was also a lot of market interest in member efforts to harden campuses against adverse weather events. Hail was discussed a little bit, as was convective storm, and Tobias mentioned these earlier. The continued commitment by members to controlled environment mitigation is helping to maintain our cross-class aggregate insurer confidence, and there's been a lot of activity in this area, and members have engaged very heavily with us, and we very much appreciate that. as Tobias mentioned during his session on his projects, market underwriting is now focusing on weather-related perils, the convective storms, the hail events and the bushfires, and this is understandable. I mean, we've seen a lot of these events here in Australia over the past 18 months and globally as well. COVID-19 has been challenging for everyone, and we recognise the challenges that members have had to deal with. But we also recognise the members' efforts to complete their risk recommendations and to continue delivering maintenance programs in the context of less foot traffic on campus. And this was something that was also recognised by our insurance and reinsurance partners during the course of the presentations. The risk management module, as Christine explained, is now in Reshore, and we will roll that out very soon, and we hope that this significantly improves the flow of information and the ease of updating risk recs and seeking advice from us as you may need it. And lastly, fire, research and weather-related exposures at campus level will continue to be the focus of our risk engineering programs in the years ahead. That's all from me, Terry. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon, and thank you to all that have participated. We can perhaps get now to a more free-flowing approach to the webinar with your questions and the answers that we can provide for you. It has been very interesting going through the first stage of the reinsurance renewal to talk to, I guess, some 30 or 40 people around the world about their attitude towards underwriting at the moment. And as the teams mentioned, the focus is definitely shifting more towards the weather-related events, and it'll be interesting to see how they respond to that in their terms and conditions. Could we have, are there any written questions in at the moment, Christine?
There's one, but just to remind people that you can put your question in the question box, or if you raise your hand, we can unmute you if you wanted to ask a question verbally. So just use the hand button if you want to ask a question verbally, or put your question in the question box. There's one question for Tobias. Have we gotten any early indications from the reinsurers of where pricing might lie?
Yeah, thanks, Christine. Yes, as I said, at the moment the reinsurers are working through the process. We've provided the underwriting submission to all our partners, and the positive side. So during the calls we had, and Terry mentioned, we talked about 30-40 carriers. Indicated continuity in terms of the risk appetite, obviously subject to the price. In terms of pricing indications, probably too early for Unimutual specific numbers, but what we've seen and talking to various insurers, reinsurers and brokers in the market as well as internationally, the intel or the information we got on June, July renewals and April renewals is probably, the good news is the increases we've seen in the market are slowing down significantly, but there are still increases, and that really depends on cat exposures and loss experience. Best guess at the moment is probably 10 to 15% still increases, but it really then depends what we get for the mutual. Obviously, we're trying to get the best terms from our reinsurers on that.
Thanks, Tobias. Any hands raised?
I can't see any hands. I'll let Kerry, if you can mention if there's any hands that are being raised, if you can let us know. I don't see any at the moment. Just another one for Tobias that's come up. Can we expect any early indication before October the 1st?
Sorry, just got to unmute. Let's put that back. Soon, Bobby, we can, we try the best we can, and if we get any early indications which are representative for the reinsurance panel, we will provide that to members as early as we can, because obviously appreciate everyone's in budgeting processes and needs to get as much intel as possible. However, the deadline is the 1st of October. But anything we can do to give any kind of early feedback, we will communicate that as soon as we can.
Great.
Thanks, Tobias. Carry on, Christine.
Another question that's come in. Any potential restrictions in coverage indicated from the reinsurers?
Not at this stage. Again, saying they are currently working through it. What we put forward, we had some discussions with our members earlier. Just an example for offshore exclusions, for example, we try to tidy up the wording in that regards, presented it to the reinsurers. I expect the heavy lift was done last year in a very difficult and challenging reinsurance market. So I don't really expect any great surprises. Having said that, we'll have to wait for the feedback we get. But we hope to keep the coverage as it is, or even broaden it in areas where we feel it's too restricted. Thank you.
Great.
It was a very interesting experience talking to the underwriters. It was very pleasing to see that they were more than willing to continue engagement with the mutual. There was not one of the existing carriers who said that they'd had a change of heart. There was conversation with potential additional carriers that had expressed an interest of having the opportunity to give some consideration to what we were looking for. And generally speaking, I came out of that whole process. I think that the rest of the team did. That the team was myself, Tobias, Willis Ree, Simon, and the Allison group, who are reinsurance experts, Paul and Andrew Allison. We came away feeling very positive, very positive. There was no angst over last year. And there was, an expression of possible additional capacity being provided if we needed it. So that was very comfortable. Of course, it all comes down to, in the end, what they put on the table. And you can rest assured that we will keep you posted all the way through. In fact, we plan to hold one of these seminars each month from now until renewal date, getting possibly down to fortnightly as we get closer, to make sure everybody is fully across what's happening, particularly in terms of the renewal. So if we have any other questions at this stage.
There's just one with regards to wordings. When will wording changes be communicated?
I assume that's another one for me. Obviously, we at the moment we put forward the updated wording from our side to our reinsurance partners, and I think it doesn't make sense to communicate them now if we're not sure what the feedback from the reinsurers are. So as soon as we get them back, but that will be well in advance of the reinsurance renewal, so before 1st of October, and then obviously well in advance of the membership renewal.
If I could add to that, I think it's reasonable to say at this stage that the changes that we are proposing are primarily cosmetic. They're tidying up issues which have been of concern in the past. We didn't feel that it was going to be beneficial to make substantial changes to the wordings prior to this renewal. But as Tobias mentioned earlier, we'd more likely look at that next renewal. However, having said that, we don't yet know what changes the carriers might want to make, if in fact they do. But if they do, you will know about them almost immediately after we do.
And just thanks, Terry, if I can add to that, we had a tech committee meeting earlier this week, and we will make sure that every change will be explained and give members enough time to ask questions to explain the background, because we appreciate that has to be communicated to stakeholders on your side as well. So we'll make sure that every information we have will be shared as early as possible.
Great. There's another question that's come through claims activity. So this might be one for you, Jamie. What has our claims activity been like so far this year?
Thanks, Chris. It was much better than last year, certainly. And our total cost of retained claims for the year to date is $6.5 million. And for the same period last year was $13.1 million. So significantly better than last year. The biggest claim has been a fire in Queensland a few weeks ago. There have been no claims anywhere near the excess of loss reinsurance attachment point. So we have a clean record so far this year as far as the reinsurers are concerned. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. A pretty good year so far.
Great, thanks, Jamie. Another question has come through in regards to member limits. There were member limits that were reduced last year. Will these be able to be, I can't see the whole, I think I missed out the last bit of the question, but I think will these be able to be adjusted?
Yeah, sure, thank you. Yeah, we have to work through that. So by all means, if there's any specific question in regard to limits or sub-limits, please let us know as early as possible so we can look into that.
Right.
Thank you. Let's make that specific. So for any member who has a need to consider adjusting existing limits, either as a preference or otherwise, please let us know so that we can build that into negotiations.
Right. There's another question that is on the liability side. While property is a main pain point, are there any early signs or predictions on liability and management liability protection pricing and cover?
Celinda, would you like to take that one?
Yes, thank you, Terry. So in terms of the coverage, it will remain as is, but I can provide you with an update, perhaps another 3 or 4 weeks. But in terms of the premium, I can't actually guarantee in terms of what that increase look like. But again, I'll probably be able to give you some form of premium increase variation in the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Thanks, Celinda.
Right. Another question has come through on, will maximum foreseeable loss data be provided in the recently completed, and sorry, I'm not seeing the whole of this question for some reason. I think
to do with risk surveys.
Sorry, can you read it, Kerry? Because I can't see the whole question, please.
To do with maximum foreseeable loss data, be provided in recently completed risk surveys.
Simon, would you like to take that one?
Traditionally, thank you, Terry. Traditionally, we don't provide that information. That's used by the reinsurance, our reinsurance partners to set their capacity. So that's the answer to the question. We can certainly discuss that if it's necessary or needed. Traditionally, we haven't provided that in the risk engineering reports, as it is largely an academic exercise in determining loss estimate.
Yeah, if I could add to this, we feel, well, not only do we feel, but it's the fact that the reinsurers like to make their own determination about what these numbers are. Sometimes we have an opinion, sometimes they have a different opinion. Consequently, it's difficult to actually pick on a particular figure and say to a member, this is your maximum potential loss. We are working to improve that situation, but there's still a little bit of an issue between us making a determination, it being difficult, it being different than the reinsurer's own considerations about what that should be. That shouldn't really be a point that we discuss with them. But in terms of member information, I can well understand why members would like to know what we think that is. We will have to take that on board as a requirement that you have, and we'll see how we can go about providing some meaningful advice for you there. I hope that satisfies your answer. I realise it's not a specific answer, but it's a difficult subject, that one, considering different people involved in the process have different views.
There's been a comment just back on that, and basically a comment saying the MFLs are useful, and one member uses the MFLs to assess balance sheet risk and assess contract risk if they accept terms that may step outside of Unimutual terms. So that's just a comment back from a member on that.
And I appreciate that, and we will take this whole issue on board. I doubt that we'll have something resolved by this renewal, but certainly I can understand why it is of value, and I can understand that you would like us to provide it. So we will work on doing that.
Another question's come through on cyber. Given recent ransomware developments, any indications on what is happening in the cyber insurance marketplace, pricing, deductibles, limits?
Okay, so in terms, I'll respond to that. Thanks, Christine. So in terms of the cyber ransomware coverage, that it will remain for this year's renewal, but the issue that we're going to have is just depending on the data collection form in terms of the control that you have in place. So there may be a reduction in terms of the ransomware limit, depending how the responses has been provided in the data collection form. So, but in terms of deductibles, it will remain as it is. But again, I wouldn't be able to provide you with an update, probably another couple of weeks, to see if there is any further changes. But so far at this stage, there is no other changes in the cyber terms.
Thank you, Linda.
Great, thanks, Linda. Well, there's some have come in. Okay, there's one that's come in they just want to to confirm. This goes back to renewal. Just to confirm, rollover date is 1st of October, and we will have an offer. I think before the end of October is the question.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Yeah, absolutely. The renewal. Reinsurance renewal attachment date is the 1st of October. Members' attachment date doesn't change, and it is our objective to have terms to you in the 1st or at the latest 2nd week of October.
Right. There was a comment came back from someone just on the cyber. It's a comment that says should be insisting cyber insurance be held by providers now like PI and PL cover that we see as standard requirements. Okay, so standards contracts now are requiring as a standard cover for the cyber insurance. I think what that that comment is referring to. It's not a question. It's just a comment that's come back from a member. Let's see. I think we've done that on the cyber pricing. There's a question come back on the cyber pricing, but I think that's. Did we cover that pricing for cyber?
I think Christine, I did mention previously, I can't provide any figures until the next 3-4 weeks, but as soon as I receive that from our cyber insurer, I will provide an update.
Okay. And there's a question that's come back regarding property sublimits. Whether there's any reduction in property sublimits for 21-22.
I can take that. No, at this stage, we don't expect any reduction in sublimits. And there was no indication in our discussions with the reinsurers at this stage that there's any concern around the sublimits we offer on the property side.
Great. I think that covers the questions that have come through so far. And just to reiterate, if you wanted to raise your hands and ask a question or make a comment verbally, you're quite welcome to do so.
Anything more, Christine?
There's just a comment from a comment's come through about the just the tightening of the cyber market. That there's been some significant, I suppose, maybe reduction in reinsurers that are willing to go into that space, or some people coming out of that space. Whether there's a comment from anyone with regards to that.
That's me again.
Go ahead, Celinda.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm fully aware in terms of other insurers in the cyberspace increasing, reducing their capacity in terms of limits and sub-limits. But I think the premium at the moment from last June from the market is around anything between 20 to 45%. So in terms of our cyber portfolio and our discussion, I can definitely confirm there is no changes, no reduction in sublimit and so forth, except for perhaps maybe ransomware. The cover is still there, but yeah, that's all I can provide at the moment. But again, I will provide you any updates from XIXL in the coming weeks.
Thank you, Celinda. Christine, anything more?
I think that's, oh, hang on, I've got another one. They keep popping up down the bottom. Okay, are property contributions likely to increase this year? And if so, by how much?
Thanks, Christine.
$24,000 question.
Yeah. As I said before, it's too early to give any mutual specific numbers from our reinsurers, which are a big part of the contribution calculation. However, as I mentioned earlier, what we see in the market and talking to different brokers and carriers, unfortunately, the property market is still increasing, although the rate of increase is slowing down. And what we see, depending on cat exposures and loss activity, which again, as I think Jamie mentioned, is as far as it goes today quite good for the mutual. We still see probably 10%, 10 to 15%. But again, as soon as we have something more definite, sort of more indicative from the reinsurers, we'll let the members know as early as we can. Sorry, I can't be more specific on that, but that's really at this stage very difficult to say.
I think I could add a little to that. Tobias and his underwriting team, and I think Simon, have been exceptional this year in the way in which they've approached the reinsurance renewal and the modelling of that. We have done, Tobias has done a lot of work on historical claims analysis, where that claims analysis would sit, given certain variances. In other words, differing levels of retention by the mutual compared to at what level we pass reinsurance on to the carriers, where the claims would have sit over different periods, to give us a picture which can or should enable us to obtain the best possible terms that we can from the market. So on the one hand, you have the industry increases, and on the other hand, you have the mutual's actual performance. And we are hoping that the work we've done will enable us to deliver the best possible terms and conditions that we can. However, until we get some indication from those partners that carry the risks above $7.5 million, we really won't be able to give you any more than that. If there's nothing more, Christine, I might just say.
Sorry, another one. Can I just slip another one in? Just a comment from a member. Just a comment from a member, back on the MFL issue, and it was just a comment saying that they need to be, they need some assurance that they've got the right level of right limit, and that's just a comment from the member about the necessity for them having the MFL, so they be assured that they are getting a correct limit from themselves. So it's
I'll try to explain a little bit more clearly what I was talking about. It is possible for us to calculate a limit and put a number on it. The Vice Chancellor of a university might have a different opinion about that limit, given what he sees the value of the property compared to what we feel the replacement value of the property might be. So it's difficult from that perspective to provide a definitive limit. We have to calculate what we believe the reasonable limits should be so that we can model appropriately for placement of reinsurance. But if, for example, we were to say to a reinsurer that we think the MFL is 1.4 and he thought it was 1.1, then it's going to affect his calculation of risk and rate. So it's quite a difficult topic. It's one that we will probably propose through a questionnaire to the members forum. The members can stipulate their needs. We can review that through the technical committee. We can plan an approach at Unimutual and put it to the board and see if we can get the board's approval to actually undertake a specific service of that type. So I do really understand the need, and I really would like to provide a solution, but there are complications at the moment that we would have to go through to make sure that everybody was comfortable with the process. That is, various aspects of the members' organisation, carriers, and the like. So if you would bear with me on that, I can certainly understand the value. I can certainly understand the need. And in fact, certain members would ask their brokers to provide that recommendation as well. And I'm sure the brokers have their own particular opinion on what MFLs might be. So it's a complicated subject. From our perspective, our main concern is to make sure that we've got adequate reinsurance to protect members, no matter what their various opinions on MFL might be. At the end of the day, it comes down to what the actual cost of the claim might be. So, taken on board, we will do what's necessary to evaluate the process and reach a conclusion on how we might be able to help.
And one final question is, do we have a way of protecting members from premium impacts if a member leaves?
Shall I take that one, Tobias, or would you prefer to do it? We, as Tobias mentioned in his presentation, we have several approaches to how we might be able to manage that situation, and we have put our most favoured approach to the reinsurers at the moment about how we might tackle that. If that approach fails, we have a second plan and we have a third plan. We won't be able to give you any definitive response in relation to any particular member, but our intention is to make sure that after we've provided members with their renewal terms, if a member decides to leave, that there will be no impact on members that remain, no impact on their contributions. That's our absolute objective. And as we go through the next webinar, we'll be able to give you more information on how that will work until we can give you absolutely definitive details. But we understand how that impacts you. We understand it was a major problem last year, and we understand we have to resolve it.
Thanks, Terry. I think that looks like it's the final question that's come up.
Okay.
And there's some good news from a member saying thank you very much.
Thanks for that. Look, I hope you can see that we completely understand what it is that you want us to do as your mutual. Some of the things we are already working on. Other things, as you've mentioned today, some type of service in relation to MFL identification, we will work on. And we're open to receive any questions from you via email of any type at any time. Feel free to write to me or any other member of the team on any issue that you have, and you can be assured of a response, certainly within 24 hours. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it's a decent slice of your time. And we look forward to being able to continue to provide our service to you as we go forward. So on behalf of the team, many thanks, and we will certainly see you in 1 month in this same type of scenario to continue to respond to your questions. Thank you very much.